Chapter 1944. Annihilate Humans. If Lesavim really did such a thing, then there was no doubt that he could easily annihilate all the mythical powers. Because humans were the root of all mysteries. At least, that was the case in this world. Why could various mythical systems exist? Because of faith. If there was no faith, then no matter if it was a god or a Buddha, they would all die. Because of this, before the peace treaty was concluded, the various mythical powers would reject each other. Because the rest of the mythical powers were competitors for their faith. If it wasn't for the appearance of Noah, who laid the foundation for the peace treaty with his extremely tyrannical and overbearing strength, then it would be almost impossible for Asashel to achieve the peace treaty with all the mythical powers and usher in world peace. Not to mention other things, Shiva and Sakra had been competing for popularity since ancient times. Even if they reached a peace treaty, they were still secretly opposing each other, never stopping for a moment. From this, it could be seen how important faith was to a mythical power. Not to mention the rest of the mythical powers, even demons, angels, and fallen angels had now fallen to the point where they couldn't survive without humans. Even vampires, if they didn't have human blood to survive, sooner or later, they would also go on the road to extinction, no different from the other races and powers. Therefore, once humans really perished, no one would need to do anything. Sooner or later, all the mythical powers would go to extinction and completely disappear from human history. After fully understanding Lesavim from Asashel and Wally, coupled with their previous dealings, Noah had already placed himself in the role of Lesavim, while the gods were arguing endlessly over nonsense, and began to imagine himself in the role of Lesavim. If he was Lesavim, knowing the importance of humans and wanting to annihilate all the mythical powers, would he do something like annihilating all the humans? The answer, yes. Why didn't Lesavim attack the other powers, or even the fallen angels, but only the angels and demons? Because angels and demons are easier to attack. Not necessarily, right? Noah said this when all the gods were shocked. Let's not talk about the angels for now. The demons have Sazax and Ichuka. As surpassers who are as famous as Sazax and Ichuka, it's impossible for Lesavim not to know how troublesome the two of them are. Instead of attacking the demons, why don't we attack the forces that don't have the top 10 powerhouses in the world, or simply continue to attack the heavily injured vampires? That would undoubtedly be easier to succeed, right? But Lesavim didn't. Instead, he still attacked the angels and demons. Noah looked around at all the gods. At first, I also wondered if Lesavim was unwilling to be expelled from the underworld as the son of the demon king, so he had evil intentions. Or perhaps it was because of his grudge with Sazax and Ichuka that he attacked the demons. But in that case, how do you explain his attack on the angels? Now that I think about it, I suddenly feel that Lesavim must have some thoughts when he attacked the angels and demons. Noah knocked on the table. After all, angels and demons are now the races that have the most inseparable relationship with humans. In order to maintain the prosperity of the race, demons had long developed demon pawns with the technical support of Ichuka, which could reincarnate creatures of other races into demons. Angels were lives created by the God of the Bible. After the God of the Bible passed away, they could no longer be increased. Therefore, after reaching a peace agreement, they relied on the reincarnation technology of demons to develop means to reincarnate people with deep faith into angels. In today's demon world and angel world, reincarnated people had become an indispensable part. And most of these reincarnated people were humans. Although Lesavim, this surpasser, is the crystallization of malice, I have to say that he's really a lousy guy. Noah curled his lips and smiled. When we were in the vampire's territory, he tried to seal off my trump card, but he neglected the uncontrollable nature of the evil dragon. This time, he launched a sudden attack to divert our attention and make us think that he's planning to attack the various mythical organizations. While we're focused on defending ourselves, he'll be able to proudly attack the humans, right? It's just that the idiot who was occupied by the idea of attacking humans also chose the angels and demons that have the closest relationship with humans. This makes people feel that there's a trace. Noah looked at Athasiel and said, just like how he instigated his son to abuse his grandson for fun and even forbade his son from killing Varley. He never thought that after doing this, when Varley, the child who inherited the power of Lucifer and the White Dragon Emperor, grows up, that kind of hatred will pose a great threat to him. He's just a clown jumping around. In other words, although Lezivim's various malice would cause harm to others, it would also bury endless future troubles for himself every time. The son of the demon king who was immersed in the despair, pain, and confusion of others only thought of enjoying everything. Like a drug addict, he would think of ways to pursue it all day long, but never thought that he was addicted to drugs. He could not achieve anything, but he was good at spoiling things. However, such a lousy guy obtained the Holy Grail, which caused all the disasters. Next, Lezivim's target of attack will be humans. What we should do is not to consider our own defense, but to set up a net in the human world and wait for him to jump in himself. Noah concluded with this sentence. This is my idea. Of course, it's only my idea. Everything is speculation. It's up to you to believe it or not. The over-gods of the various organizations looked at one another when they heard that. They all fell silent. It had to be said that Noah's reasoning was reasonable and well-founded. He had completely unearthed the essence of Lezivim and reached a final conclusion. It was really persuasive. However, this was still only a speculation. If it was wrong, when all the forces were investing their strength in the human world, Lezivim would take advantage of the fact that their defenses were greatly lowered to attack the headquarters of the various forces. What would the consequences be then? It was unimaginable. This possibility was not non-existent. Under such consideration, the various forces really wanted to ignore this speculation and only care about their own safety just in case. However, if that was the case, when the humans were wiped out by Lezivim, they would only be digging their own graves. It was up to the various forces how to make the choice. I agree with Noah's decision. Asashel was the first to express his opinion. That bastard Lezivim will definitely do such a thing. Therefore, the fallen angels will put all their efforts into defense in the human world. After Asashel expressed his opinion, the four demon kings, Sazax, Achuka, Seraph, and Felubium, looked at each other and nodded. The demons will also fully enter the human world to take precautions. The main gods of the various mythical forces hesitated. Sigh. Odin sighed and rubbed his shoulders. It seems that an old man like me will have to accompany you young people to play some exciting games. Norse mythology. Participate. That's true. Zeus grinned. We can't let the humans be wiped out. Greek mythology. Participate. You actually want me, a god of destruction, to do such a thing as protecting the humans. What a joke. Shiva mocked himself and then the corners of his mouth rose. But, it's not my style to be a coward. Indian mythology. Participate. A group of gods are actually led by a little demon left behind by a demon king. That's outrageous. Indra's words were still sarcastic, but he also curled his lips. Forget it. Since we are gods, then we should do something to save the humans. Mount Meru. Participate. Seeing that the four most important mythical forces had announced their participation, the other main gods of the mythical forces began to struggle. In the end, they gritted their teeth and nodded heavily one after another. Egyptian mythology participates. Kettle mythology participates. Roman mythology participates. We will all participate. All the main gods expressed their opinions, making Sazax, Asashel, and the others laugh. Noah suddenly smiled and stood up. From now on, we will fully enter the war to protect the humans. Chapter 1945. The meeting lasted from noon until late at night. It was only when the sky began to brighten slightly that the door of the meeting hall opened. The main gods of the various mythical organizations brought their attendants and immediately activated the teleportation magic formation the moment they stepped out of the door, returning to their base camps. Next, what they needed to do was to arrange the tasks that were just assigned in the meeting, and at the same time, make preparations as much as possible so that they could face Lezavim and the evil dragon army in the human world. Of course, as a precaution, the various mythical organizations also made their own preparations to prevent Lezavim from directly attacking the mythical organizations. And all of this had to be done secretly. If Lezavim sensed that the human world had set up an inescapable defense, then that guy would definitely not appear again, or he would simply turn around and attack the various mythical organizations whose defenses were greatly reduced. If that happened, then it would be troublesome. Therefore, the defense of the human world had to be carried out quietly until the moment Lezavim appeared and dealt a fatal blow. After the main gods left the meeting hall one by one and returned to their base camps through the teleportation magic formation, Noah and the others slowly walked out. Then, we'll also go back and make preparations. Sazax turned his head and looked at Noah. If there's anything, just contact us directly. Yes, Seraphil said with a smile. You should have our contact information in that phone of yours. Don't be shy, try to contact us as much as you can. Got it. Noah nodded. Go on with your work. The four demon kings, Sazax, Achuka, Seraphil, and Felubium immediately activated the teleportation magic formation and left the meeting hall under the watchful eyes of Noah and Asashel. At the same time, a god walked out of the meeting hall and came to Noah. To be honest, I'd like to have a fight with you. As soon as he came in front of Noah, the most famous god of destruction in Hindu mythology, Shiva, looked straight at Noah and said such a sentence. In this world, there aren't many people who can threaten me, and I've never challenged any of them before. You're one of the most outstanding people among them. If I can destroy you, it will be very interesting, right? His words made Arthashel's expression turn serious. Orpheus and Lilith, who had been quietly following Noah, raised their heads and looked at Shiva with their dark eyes. Just this alone was enough to cause a wave of pressure to fill the air. However, Shiva was not surprised. Instead, he was happy. He looked at Orpheus and Lilith with joy. The infinite dragon god, who had always stood aloof from worldly affairs and was uninterested in anything no matter how much one provoked him, actually had such a reaction because of a human. He actually couldn't help but say these words of bravado in front of you. That doesn't seem like something a guy called the strongest Einherjar would do. Noah shrugged and didn't say anything. On the contrary, Arthashel's expression suddenly became serious and said such a piece of news. Do you know? The people of the Hero sect have actually become Sakra's vanguard. Hero sect. Noah was slightly startled and said in surprise. Those guys were released by you. It should be said that they were all softened by Sakra, Arthashel said helplessly. After you showed your skills last time, Sakra requested to meet with a few people of the Hero sect. Later, he asked to release them, intending to take those descendants of heroes under his command and work for him. In the end, you agreed just like that. Noah was speechless. Really generous. There are 3 holders of the God's extinguishment tool in the Hero sect, right? In fact, Sakra came for Chow Chow, Galgar, and Leonardo, the 3 holders of the God's extinguishment tool. Arthashel spread out his hands. If it was in the past, of course, we wouldn't agree to let them go so easily and be used by that ambitious guy who wants to defeat Shiva all day long. But with you as a restraint, Sakra can't make any waves. We just went with the flow and let Sakra owe us a big favor. However, now it seems that Sakra didn't take Chow Chow, Galgar, and Leonardo under his command just to increase his combat power to deal with Shiva. Arthashel looked at Noah with some worry. That guy, it's very likely that because of your appearance, he had the idea of taking the god's extinguishment tool from the hero sect. After all, the only weakness of Noah who could use another cosmology was humans. Only humans could defeat Noah. Sakra probably wanted to rely on Chow Chow, Galgar, and Leonardo to restrain Noah, right? In this regard, Noah's eyes flashed and the corner of his mouth rose. Chow Chow is indeed a talent. Even God and Demon King can't ignore him. But since he couldn't win against me before, it's impossible for him to win against me in the future. As for the other two, it's not a big deal. Let Sakra torment them however he wants. With that, Noah waved at Arthashel and left the scene with Orpheus and Lilith. That kid. Arthashel shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, but the corner of his mouth rose. I hope Sakra has some self-awareness. Otherwise, provoking that monster will be the end of Mount Meru. Chapter 1946. After leaving the venue, Noah brought Orpheus and Lilith to the Jamanli's house. Only there could Noah use the teleportation magic circle that connected to the supernatural research department to return to the human world. Although the Jamanli family was currently dealing with the aftermath of the chaos in the demon realm and was temporarily not at the Jamanli's house, the magic circle was fixed and directly engraved in Lilith's room. Noah only needed to inject magic power into it to be able to use it. However, halfway through, Noah suddenly stopped. Orpheus and Lilith immediately stopped in their tracks as though they had sensed something. Noah looked up slightly and suddenly spoke. Orpheus, Lilith, go to the gift card first and find Aster and Athena to accompany you. I have something to deal with for the time being. After Asashel's transformation, the environment in the gift card had changed greatly. It was as if it was located in a resort, and there was almost everything that could be enjoyed. With Orpheus, Lilith, Aster, and Athena as companions, there was no need to be afraid of loneliness and boredom. Moreover, after Asashel's transformation, Noah did not need to take out the gift card at any time. Any existence that had a contract with Noah could return to the gift card that Noah had stored in his body at any time with just a thought. Therefore, Orpheus and Lilith both looked up and glanced at Noah. Orpheus said without rhyme or reason. He's very tricky. I know, Noah replied without looking back. But I can handle it. Orpheus nodded, held Lilith's hand, and didn't say anything else. Immediately, the two dragon gods turned into a burst of light particles and disappeared into the air. Only Noah was left at the scene. No. There was another person. A black-robed young man who had appeared out of nowhere and was leaning against a rock. His pair of different-colored eyes, one gold and one black, were staring at Noah without moving away for a moment. Surprisingly, it was Klon Kvoch. What a surprise. Noah looked straight ahead. And here I thought that you would continue to train like before after leaving the disaster. That's what I did, Kron Kovac said without hiding anything. It's just that I won't stay in one place forever. Training is only one of my goals. I have another purpose. Noah narrowed his eyes. Observation dragon. That's right. Clone Kovacs nodded. Where there are dragons, there will be me. That's just like you. Noah sounded like he had known Klon Kovac for a long time. Then, did you come to the underworld because there are dragons here? There are many dragons who reincarnate as demons. There are even many dragons who reincarnate as demons and live in the underworld. The human world is no longer suitable for dragons to live in, so compared to the human world, the underworld is more attractive to me. Clone Kovac seemed to become talkative when it came to dragons. In the past, I came to the underworld many times and saw many dragons here. Their way of life interested me, but I still don't understand what a dragon is. Saying this, Clone Kovac propped himself up and stopped leaning against the rock, facing Noah. In the past, The two heavenly dragons were also my targets of observation, Clone Kvok said. But they didn't care about me at all. They just kept fighting. Even after they were killed and their souls were sealed in the divine artifact, they kept fighting, fighting. I don't understand. As heavenly dragons, they are only second to the dragon god. Why do they keep fighting? Are they real dragons? Clone Kvok seemed to be reminiscing about something as he kept talking. It's not just the two heavenly dragons. Most of the other dragons like to fight, even I am no exception. Gods, humans, demons and other existences even call dragons the aggregation of power. Since that's the case, is displaying power the essence of a dragon? But if that's the case, why doesn't the dragon god Orpheus fight with anyone? Why does he only watch the development of the world quietly? Why does the real emperor god Crimson Dragon only want to fly in the dimensional gap? Clone Kvok shook his head. As the top existences of the dragon tribe, the infinite dragon god and the emperor god Crimson Dragon are different from other dragons. They don't display their power at all. So, which one is the real dragon? At this point, Clone Kvok's tone became unprecedentedly persistent. I want to know this. I want to know what a dragon is. For this, no matter how long it takes, I will continue to observe. What is a dragon? This was Clone Kvok's persistence. Getting the answer to this question could be said to be the meaning of Clone Kvok's long life. Di Shi Tian was right about one thing. Human life is short. So, humans will pursue glory in their limited lives, hoping to leave behind traces to prove their existence after they die. Compared to humans, the lives of gods, demons, dragons and other existences were too long. If they were like humans and did everything they wanted to do in less than 100 years, then how would they live for thousands of years? By that time, wouldn't they be walking corpses? So, demons, angels, fallen angels and even Asura gods and Buddhas had their own persistence. That was the meaning of their survival. Lias wanted to become the king of the ranked game. Tsang wanted to build a school that anyone could enter to teach the ranked game. Indra wanted to defeat Shiva. Shiva wanted to show all of the god of destruction. Even the 4 demon kings had the goal of changing the demons and making them prosper again. Asashal wanted world peace, and everyone's goal was very distant. And Clone Kvok wanted to know what a dragon was. You have made a contract with the dragon god, right? Clone Kvok said. You can attract Orpheus and Lilith, and you are the red dragon emperor who is different from the previous generations. Can you show me the real dragon? Noah was silent. This question was simply unsolvable. In the eyes of 1,000 people, there were 1,000 Hamlets. In the eyes of different people, dragons were also different existences. Humans generally believed that demons were evil creatures. However, in reality, there were kind and gentle demons like Jamonli's kin, and there were also evil demons like Lezavim. Just like how there were good and evil humans, one could not directly give an absolute definition. It was the same for dragons. Because of this, even if Clone Kvok had survived from the mythological era until now, he still couldn't find an answer. Under such circumstances, Noah suddenly opened his mouth. In the past, there was a time when I thought that humans were simply hopeless. They were a group of people who wore human skin on the surface, but hid darkness in their hearts. Noah's sudden words made Clone Kvok stunned. However, Noah was already immersed in his memories. Recalling what he experienced in the world of a black bullet, Noah let out a sigh. At that time, humans were facing a disaster, but in the face of the disaster, they showed an unimaginable ugly side. In order to survive, adults didn't hesitate to let a group of children die. Even before the disaster arrived, it was as if they gave up everything, burning, killing, robbing, and committing all kinds of evil. Noah slightly clenched his fist, his voice had a rare murderous aura and anger. At that time, I really thought that humans were simply hopeless. I even had the thought of personally wiping out all the humans in that world to prevent the ugliness of human nature from spreading. After saying this, Noah bitterly laughed. However, in the end, I still gave up and even saved those humans. Upon hearing this, Klon Kewok asked almost instinctively. Why? Because, even if some people really deserved to die, there were still people who were worth saving. Noah suddenly smiled. Humans are such contradictory existences. I think dragons are the same. Therefore, I really can't answer your question. Klon Kewok once again fell silent. After a while, Klon Kewok raised his head and looked at Noah, saying, "You're right. Let's have a fight." Hearing this, Noah didn't hesitate this time. Okay. If that's the case, then I'll also be serious from the start. After saying that, Noah raised one of his arms. Red Dragon Emperor's boosted gear. Under Noah's command, the scarlet red boosted gear burst out in a flash, and a ferocious dragon claw-like protective gear covered Noah's arm. Drake. Noah said softly. Go. Then use your full strength. Partner. Drake's voice sounded from the boosted gear. Let the strongest evil dragon witness our full power as the Scarlet Dragon Emperor. Obviously, Drake's fighting spirit had been ignited. At that moment, Noah smiled faintly, and raised his arm that was covered by the scarlet red boosted gear. Balance breaker. The boosted gear inlaid on the back of the boosted gear suddenly released a dazzling light. Accompanied by a muffled explosion, a violent wave of scarlet air burst out from Noah's body and turned into a scarlet dragon shadow. Like a mirage, it stacked on top of Noah's body. The scarlet red boosted gear that was shining with a dazzling light was instantly disintegrated and turned into illusory scales that merged into the dragon shadow. The scales on the mirage-like dragon shadow became extremely clear and lifelike. It was like a small red dragon, emitting a terrifying aura. That aura continued to soar, rising at a frightening rate. In just an instant, it was evenly matched with Klon Kewok. In fact, there was even a faint trace of it surpassing the latter. Feeling the suffocating pressure, Klon Kewok was not shocked but delighted. What a refreshing dragon wave. Undoubtedly, it's only a balance breaker, but it's already as powerful as the White Dragon Emperor's extreme tyrannical dragon. Even without using a divine artifact, Noah had now reached a 4-digit level. With a solid foundation, Noah's strength naturally increased explosively when using the boosted gear. He was now comparable to the top 10 masters in the world. So, unlike Wally, who only has the strength of a sky dragon, I have the strength of a real sky dragon. Noah, whose body was swelling with scarlet air, raised his eyes and stared at Klon Kewok. His astonishing aura kept rising. If you don't take this seriously, you'll die. Hearing this, Klon Kewok did not say anything. He grinned, and the dragon power turned into a pitch-black flame that kept rising from his body. Roar, 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 roar. The next moment, Klon Kewok let out a roar that shook the air. The pitch-black flame that was rising around him suddenly started to rotate like a pitch-black tornado. The tornado was not large at first, but with the support of the violent dragon power, it expanded to hundreds of meters in the blink of an eye. High up in the clouds, a pitch-black tornado spun madly, forcefully stirring up the clouds below, turning them into a whirlpool, twisting and turning. Looking at the huge tornado, Noah let out a low roar. The endless energy in his body instantly turned into divine power and surged into Noah's raised arm. Suddenly, a bright light flashed above Noah's raised arm, condensing into a spear of light that gradually expanded. Boost, 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 boost. A voice that symbolized the multiplication of power rang out from the scarlet dragon's shadow on Noah's body. As the voice rang out, the spear of light shone brightly and crazily expanded. In an instant, it was like a pillar of light that connected the heavens and the earth, illuminating the whole world. Immediately, as if their hearts were connected, Noah and Clon Kuak moved at the same time. Hum. The huge pitch-black tornado, with an ear-piercing buzzing sound, swept toward Noah crazily. Wherever the storm passed, the clouds below were all torn apart and sucked into it. Like a cloud of fog, they lingered around the pitch-black tornado. Even Noah's robe billowed crazily under the sweeping of the tornado. However, there was no fear in Noah's eyes. Looking at the terrifying pitch-black tornado that was sweeping toward him, Noah's eyes sharpened. With a shake of his arm, he threw out the giant spear of light that was like a pillar that supported the sky. Swoosh! The instant the sharp sound of air being split apart appeared, the enormous light spear that illuminated the entire place shot out explosively. It drew a straight meteor-like trajectory in the air and disappeared in a flash as it rushed towards the wild and violent dark black tornado. On one side was a tornado that was as violent as flames. On the other side was a spear of light that was as dazzling as the sun. The two behemoths instantly closed the distance between them. Then, they collided with a loud bang. At the moment of collision, the world suddenly became silent. Accompanied by a roar, a terrifying shockwave spread out in the sky, wreaking havoc in a frenzy. The pitch-black tornado and the bright spear of light fiercely collided, releasing a terrifying power that caused the space to ripple slightly. Then, the tornado and the spear of light bloomed with a dazzling light and exploded with a loud bang. It was only meant to send Noah flying and increase the distance between him and Noah to avoid being attacked at a weak point. Unfortunately, Noah was not to be trifled with. The moment he was sent flying by cloned Kuak, Noah resolutely released the divine power that he had been gathering in his hand. That a burst of bright brilliance suddenly appeared and abruptly contracted into a cone shape. It carried a terrifying energy, and like a drill breaking through the sky, it shot towards cloned Kuak's direction. The speed of the cone of light was extremely terrifying. It was almost like a flash. In just a flash, it was already not far from Kua's body. Moreover, it was spinning at an extremely fast speed. With a terrifying penetrative force, it directly hit the undamaged dragon scales below Kua's neck. "It's not that easy," cloned Kuak growled. His body suddenly surged with an astonishing amount of dragon power. Like a slowly burning flame, it spun at a high speed in a spiral shape and enveloped cloned Kuak's entire body. Dong! The crazily spinning light cone fell directly on the flaming vortex-like dragon power and heavily collided with each other, causing a deafening collision sound to reverberate. In the end, under the resistance of the flaming vortex-like dragon power, the light cone was actually blocked and was in a deadlock. Gee! The sharp light cone spun crazily and crazily collided with the pitch-black flaming vortex, causing an ear-piercing sound that was like glass being scraped continuously, piercing one's eardrums. Roar, 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 roar. Cloned Kuak roared towards the sky, causing the dragon power in his body to expand to the maximum limit, directly covering the dazzling light cone. Under the suppression of the pitch-black flame-like dragon power, the light cone finally trembled abruptly, dimmed little by little, and finally was gradually annihilated. However, before cloned Kuak could heave a sigh of relief, a chain of light suddenly swept over. Before cloned Kuak could react, it wrapped around his body and tightly bound him within. Then, the chain of light tightened fiercely and directly pulled cloned Kuak, who was caught off guard, forward. There, Noah tightly held the chain of light in one hand and tightly clenched his other hand into a fist. The crimson air waves on his body surged violently. Boost, 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 boost. The chaotic voice reverberated in the air. Noah's tightly clenched fist fiercely punched out, completely disrupting the atmosphere. Chapter 1949. Bang! Accompanied by a heavy thunder-like muffled sound, a huge black dragon in the sky immediately turned into a falling meteor. Like a meteor, it streaked across the sky and directly hit the ground. Dong! The moment the giant black dragon smashed into the ground, the entire ground seemed to be shaken. It trembled a few times, raising a thick cloud of dust and setting off a powerful gale. It swept across like a typhoon, instantly covering an area of thousands of meters. As for the spot where the collision occurred, the ground directly caved in, as if it had really been hit by a meteorite. It suddenly collapsed, stirring up pieces of rubble, causing a huge crater to appear on the ground. This huge commotion even alarmed the demons in the nearby cities, and they were all in an uproar. The underworld would not cause earthquakes or natural disasters. After all, after reaching the level of the highest demons, their own strength could already be considered natural disasters. Therefore, this huge commotion immediately attracted the attention of all the alarmed evil demons. Most likely, there were two rather terrifying powerhouses fighting nearby, which was why the commotion was so intense. Therefore, in each city, the demons began to consider whether or not to contact the enforcers. At the same time, in that huge crater, the giant black dragon, whose scales were cracked, struggled to stand up from the ground. Large amounts of blood continuously flowed out of his ferocious dragon mouth. It was obvious that he had suffered an unimaginable injury. At least, Klon Koak felt as if there was lava flowing in his body. It was as if his internal organs were being burnt, sending a shocking pain. That intense pain made Klon Koak's head feel as if it was being scalded. He became muddled and couldn't stop coughing out mouthfuls of blood. How could this be? Klon Koak muttered to himself in disbelief as he coughed out blood. Just one punch and I'm injured to this extent. Although Klon Koak's scales weren't as tough as Glendale's, it wasn't something that could be broken by just anyone. However, at this time, Klon Koak's scales were like decorations, completely useless, causing him to be seriously injured. In this situation, Klon Kovacs could only think of one possibility. Could it be the Dragon Slayer? As soon as Crown Quatch's voice sounded, Noah's voice responded. That strike earlier did indeed contain the dragon kill. Noya slowly descended from the sky, floating in front of Klon Quoch. His entire body was shrouded in a crimson flame. Noah spoke softly as he looked at Klon Quoch in the crater. My Forbidden Hand is a subspecies of Forbidden Hand. Other than the original Forbidden Hand ability of the Red Dragon Emperor, it also has an extremely powerful defensive power and dragon kill power. The reason why Noah's Forbidden Hand was a subspecies of Forbidden Hand was because the artificial artifact recreated the state when the artifact fused with the embodiment of authority. After fusing with the divine artifact, Noah's Dragon Emperor avatar had 5 effects. 1. It could transform the body into a dragon's physique, possessing strength comparable to that of a giant dragon. 2. It could possess the dragon kill power that was highly lethal to dragon-type creatures. 3. It could obtain astonishing defensive power, comparable to the immortal body. 4. It could possess close combat ability that surpassed wildness and intuition, and could be called a divine skill. 5. It could obtain the ability to multiply and transfer. Now, Noah's authority was sublimating, but the artificial artifact recreated the ability when it fused with the gauntlet. As a result, once the Forbidden Hand was used, other than the 4th ability of close combat, Noah's 4th avatar, the Dragon Emperor, could recreate the rest of the abilities. Physical strength comparable to that of a giant dragon. Dragon kill power used against dragons. Astonishing defensive power of air scales. Multiplication and transfer. Therefore, once he used the Forbidden Hand, Noah was equivalent to using the avatar of the Dragon Emperor. After stacking with the 4-digit level of strength, he rushed to the Sky Dragon level in one go. In addition, the artificial artifact also recreated Drake's 3rd ability when he was alive, penetration. Once Noah used the Forbidden Hand, the upgrade was even more terrifying than when Chow Chow used the Forbidden Hand. Chow Chow's forbidden hand was superior in its variety of abilities. Although Noah did not have as many as 7 types of forbidden hand abilities, it was an overall improvement in strength, defense, and ability. In that attack just now, not only did I use Dragon Kill, but I also used Transfer. I used all the multiplied strength to amplify the effect of Dragon Kill, and I also added Penetration. It directly ignored the defense of your scales and caused damage to you. Noah looked straight at Clone Koak. Multiplication, Transfer, and Penetration. The 3 abilities of the Red Dragon Emperor were used in that punch just now. In addition to Dragon Kill, as the purest dragon, you're lucky that you didn't die directly. It would be strange if you could get up. Of course, Noah did not say that although he used the 4 abilities of multiplication, transfer, penetration, and dragon kill, he did not use them to their limits. It should be said that the ability of multiplication was not used to its limits. Just now, Noah could actually multiply his strength 3 more times. If he multiplied it 3 more times and used the transfer ability to amplify dragon kill, as well as the penetration ability that ignored the defense of scales, that attack would definitely be able to kill Clone Koak. In other words, Noah did not multiply his strength to its limits. That attack just now could be considered as Noah being merciful. That was why Clone Koak did not die. Clone Koak did not know this. However, there was one thing that Clone Koak knew. That was, he really could not continue to fight. Understanding this, Clone Koak stopped struggling and looked at Noah in a daze. After a while, he said this. I want to ask you a question. Noah did not reply. He only looked at Clone Koak and asked silently. Seeing this, Clone Koak asked. The White Dragon Emperor who inherited Lucifer's blood developed the Tyrannosaurus without any side effects. Then, as the Red Dragon Emperor who is famous for being a god slayer, did you also do the same thing? Noah suddenly became silent. And this silence made Clone Koak understand. Is that so? Clone Koak seemed to have received the answer and closed his eyes. I lost. As his voice fell, Clone Koak's body began to shrink. From the pitch-black dragon form, he returned to his human form. As expected of the host of the Red Dragon Emperor, Drake, who is known as the crystallization of power. Clone Koak said without any regret. You've shown me the might of a heavenly dragon, Yizichin said with a smile. Actually, Clone Koak knew this. Noah's strongest weapon was not the divine weapon, but the power that everyone knew was unique to the god slayer, the simulated star atlas, another cosmology. Clone Koak was not a human, but a dragon. If Noah used the simulated star atlas, another cosmology, he would be able to easily defeat Clone Koak. However, Clone Koak wanted to see the power of the Red Dragon Emperor, not the power of the god slayer. Noah clearly understood this, so he used the best method to respond to Clone Koak. Unfortunately, I did not get the answer. Clone Koak looked at the sky. What exactly is a dragon? Hearing that, Noah slowly landed in front of Clone Koak. He looked at the strongest evil dragon lying in front of him and said calmly. If you don't understand, then just keep thinking. Keep thinking. Clone Koak repeated Noah's words. Yes, keep thinking. Noah smiled. After all, this is the biggest thing in your life. If you get the answer so easily, wouldn't it be boring? Crown Koa was stunned for a moment, then he suddenly smiled. Yes. Clone Koak smiled. That's true. After that, Clone Koak ignored the pain in his body and forced himself to stand up. Being able to stand up after just a short rest, although this guy had a different kind of stubbornness compared to the other dragons, he was still an evil dragon. Looking at Clone Koak like this, Noah suddenly felt that although this guy was an evil dragon, he was very much to his liking. Therefore, Noah spoke almost instinctively. Hey, do you want to come to our side? The sudden words made Klon Kovac stunned on the spot. Chapter 1950. On this day, the sky was clear and there wasn't even a cloud in the sky. It could be said that the weather was very good. On the boundless ocean, waves were stacked on top of each other. Although it wasn't turbulent, it set off waves that made people feel relaxed and happy. Seagulls were crying in the air. Waves were surging in the ocean. Coupled with the cloudless weather and the beautiful scenery of the sea and sky, if possible, many people would want to drive a cruise ship and have a vacation under such beautiful scenery, right? However, at a certain moment, this beautiful scenery was ruthlessly destroyed. Clank! A huge magic array suddenly flashed on the surface of the sea, blooming with dazzling light. It was a teleportation magic array. Moreover, it was a large-scale teleportation magic array. In the unique light of the teleportation magic array, a black tide emerged. No. That wasn't a black tide. It was a beast tide formed by pitch-black dragons. Dragons exuding an ominous and evil aura flew out from the teleportation magic array. Like a tide, the dragons surged out and covered the surrounding area in an instant. From afar, it looked like a huge black cloud. And in front of the black clouds, there were dragons that were completely different from the rest of the dragons. However, there were two people in front of the dragons that were clearly different from the rest of the dragons. Two men with silver hair that shone in the sun. "We're here." Euclid looked around and said faintly. "Lord Lesavim, we've arrived at the human world." "Not bad, not bad." Lesavim showed a very unpleasant smile. "After the work is over, I'll apply for a reward for your hard work." "Unfortunately, I don't get paid for my work," Euclid said expressionlessly. "Lord Lesavim, you don't have to worry." Lesavim didn't realize that he was talking nonsense and said very casually. "That's a pity." While Lesavim was wrangling, Glendale spoke up impatiently. "Cut the crap. Hurry up and attack. I can't wait to fight with the powerful guys." That's right, that's right." Nidhogg also shouted. "I can't wait to eat good food too." Although Radon, Apophis, and Az Dahaka did not say anything, their eyes were filled with impatience. Looking at this scene, Lesavim's face twitched with a nasty smile, and he cursed in his heart. During this period of time, Lesavim was almost driven mad by these evil dragons. Not only did they fight with me every time, but they also couldn't be controlled. If it weren't for Lesavim controlling the Holy Grail and being able to stop the Holy Grail's power at any time and let these evil dragons return to the earth, I believe that these evil dragons would have already run away. Of course, Lesavim couldn't wait for these evil dragons to die. As the son of the Demon King, Lesavim couldn't even remember how many years it had been since he was angered like this. The last time he was so angry was when Sazax and Ichukit chased the old Demon King to the border of the underworld and forced him to flee. Now, this wasn't the first time Lesavim was angered by these uncontrollable evil dragons. With Lesavim's temperament, how could he tolerate it? If it weren't for the fact that he needed these legendary dragons as his fighting force, Lesavim really wanted to use the power of the Holy Grail to transform these evil dragons into caterpillars. When everything is settled, I'll definitely let you know what happens to disobedient children. Lesavim thought to himself, but he could only force a smile on his face. Lord Glendale, Lord Nidhogg, Radon, Lord Apophis, Az Dahaka. Everyone, don't be anxious. The fun stuff is yet to come. Lesavim tried his best to pacify these evil dragons. It couldn't be helped. Lesavim didn't tell the evil dragons that the main purpose of this operation was to annihilate the humans. If he told the evil dragons that the purpose of this operation was to attack the defenseless humans and destroy the mythical forces one by one, these evil dragons definitely wouldn't agree. What the evil dragons wanted was a battle that could make their blood boil. They didn't want to torture and kill defenseless humans. They could kill humans to anger their opponents. They could also wreak havoc in order to lure their opponents out. However, they definitely wouldn't use underhanded methods to indirectly destroy their opponents. If they knew the purpose of Lezivim's operation, the evil dragons would definitely turn against him immediately. That was why Lezivim only told the evil dragons that the main purpose of this operation was to kill the human god slayer. In other words, Lezivim was telling the evil dragons that their opponent this time wasn't the mythical forces, but the god slayer. When they knew that Lezivim was planning to kill the god slayer, the evil dragons' eyes lit up. They agreed without hesitation. Lezivim could only smile apologetically while secretly despising these evil dragons in his heart. All of you are idiots. Undoubtedly, there are many things to enjoy in this world. Why did you choose to do the most boring thing? As expected, evil dragons are a bunch of idiots. This vulgar and despicable guy didn't know that compared to the evil dragons, he was even more unsightly. Although the evil dragons were crazy, they had their own stubbornness. Lezivim didn't have that at all. In the eyes of others, the evil dragons were a bunch of lunatics. However, in the eyes of others, Lezivim was a despicable villain. Comparing the two, there was no doubt that a lunatic with stubbornness was of a higher level than a villain with no bottom line. Only Euclid didn't care about this and followed Lezivim wholeheartedly. That was because Euclid's family was supposed to support Lucifer, the demon king. Euclid took this as his own belief. Chapter 1951. Clang. Under the dazzling light, teleportation magic circles appeared one after another in front of Lezivim, Euclid, and the rest of the evil dragons. They filled every single space around them. Immediately after, countless people started pouring out from the teleportation magic circles. Among the people, there were angels, demons, fallen angels, and all kinds of Shura gods and Buddhas. Even vampires were among them. In other words, almost all the alien races that were different from humans were here. Wow! Lezivim was shocked. How can this be? Euclid was stunned as well. Even the legendary evil dragons were completely stunned. They did not understand why the people from the various mythical organizations would appear here. How is it? Lyran. Arthashel stepped forward, and the 12 black wings on his back spread out. His gaze was like an arrow that shot towards Lezivim. Do you like the surprise we gave you? As soon as Arthashel finished speaking, the Shura gods and Buddhas from the various mythical organizations that surrounded the entire evil dragon army started emitting terrifying auras. Roar, roar, roar. Perhaps because they felt threatened, the evil dragons in the evil dragon army started roaring violently as if they were trying to intimidate. The deafening dragon roars resounded throughout the sky above the ocean, and a dangerous atmosphere started spreading in the surroundings. The legendary evil dragons who had regained their senses looked at the Azura gods and Buddhas of the various mythical organizations surrounding them and started laughing. Ha 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 ha. So many powerful guys are here. That's great. Glendale, with so much delicious food, I can finally have a full meal today. Nidhogg, I didn't expect to be defeated here. Radon, isn't this interesting? Azzy-Dahaka, interesting. Apophis, for these legendary evil dragons who were eager to fight, this situation did not scare them. Instead, they became excited. Roar, roar, roar. The mass-produced evil dragons also seemed to have been affected by their original form. Their roars became even more violent, and the murderous intent in their eyes almost reached its peak. The dragon wings on their backs flapped as they became restless. Unfortunately, Lezivim wasn't in such a good mood. Don't move. Both of you are passive. Lezivim roared, glaring angrily at Aesishurs. Damn it. Why are you guys here? Is there a need to ask this question? Asashel mocked. Of course it's because your little trick has been seen through, Lylin. As expected, it's just as Noah said. You're just a mediocre character. You don't deserve the title of son of the demon king. Lezawim clenched his fists, his face full of anger. He was shocked because his actions and thoughts had been completely seen through. He was angry because of Asashal's sarcastic and contemptuous words. Although they were all mass-produced evil dragons transformed from the Holy Grail, after a period of research, Lezawim had already used the Holy Grail to create 3 replicas of the legendary dragons, Glendale, Radon, and Nidhogg. Although these replicas were not as powerful as the original and had the power of a dragon king, demon king, their own performance and abilities were definitely comparable to superior demons, and were even stronger than the younger generation like Lyeth and Canna. As a result, the evil dragon faction actually managed to hold off the myth faction for a while. Both sides fought back and forth, causing waves of blood, severed limbs, and even corpses to fall from the sky and sink into the sea. The sea was gradually dyed red. The bloody stench that even normal people could smell made the blood of the legendary level evil dragons boil. Good. Good. Let's fight. Let's fight. Glendale. Even if they're corpses, they're not fresh, but they're all my food, my food. Nidhogg. How many years has it been since I was this excited? Radon. Aren't you quite capable? Astahaka. It's been a long time since I've seen you, and I can't wait. Apophis, the evil dragon's heartless words almost infuriated Lezawim. Why are they still making sarcastic remarks at a time like this? Bastards! Lezawim's eyes turned red. If that's the case, I'll play with you until the end. However, Lezawim's words attracted a few voices. It will be dangerous if you guys are allowed to cause trouble on the battlefield. Therefore, you should go find your opponents. Following that sentence, 4 figures appeared around Lezawim, Euclid, and the legendary level evil dragons. Sazax. Echuka. Seraphil. Philibium. They were the 4 demon kings. Without giving Lezawim and the others any time to react, the 4 demon kings unleashed their mana. Boom! In the next moment, a magic circle suddenly appeared under Lezawim and the others, releasing a blinding light. Lezawim, Euclid, and the other legendary evil dragons were all shocked. They were shrouded by the blinding light and gradually disappeared on the spot. Only the dense evil dragon army was left, madly attacking the mythical factions. Chapter 1952. When he finally reacted, Euclid discovered that he had actually arrived at a prairie. Looking around, Euclid's brows furrowed as he subconsciously muttered to himself. This is, just as this murmur sounded, a stern voice rang out. This is one of the 5 alternate dimensions jointly constructed by various mythical organizations. When this voice entered Euclid's ears, his calm expression instantly changed. Because, to Euclid, although he had not heard this voice for a long time, it was very familiar. It was so familiar that it penetrated his soul. Hearing this voice, Euclid's lips trembled uncontrollably. He slowly turned his head and looked at the source of the voice. There was a tall woman with silver hair that was almost identical to Euclid's, braided into 3 tails. She was also wearing a knight's battle armor. Looking at the tall woman, Euclid's eyes trembled violently. He believed that as long as she was an evil demon, he would definitely recognize her. Gilifia Lucifergus. One of the most powerful female evil demons in the underworld. A member of Lucifer's family. The current evil king Lucifer's wife. The existence known as the most powerful queen. Every title made it impossible for evil demons not to recognize this tall woman. Now, this tall woman did not follow her master, the current Lucifer Sazax, to fight against the evil dragon army. Instead, she stayed in this alternate dimension, waiting for Euclid's arrival. Looking at Euclid's trembling eyes, Gilifia's stern and serious face revealed a complicated and sorrowful expression. Euclid, you're still alive. Hearing this, Euclid subconsciously opened his mouth. Sister, that's right. Sister. Gulifia was Euclid's sister. Blood-related sister. When I heard from Lord Noah, I didn't really believe it. After all, back then, it was indeed unknown whether you were alive or dead. Even I thought you had died. The complicated and sorrowful expression on Gulifia's face became even more intense. Who would have thought that not only did you survive, you even joined the group of disasters and became a terrorist, aiding the tyrant. Back then, the old Demon King faction fought with the current Demon King faction. In the end, the current Demon King faction won. Syzax, Achuka, Seraphil, and Philibium became the new Demon Kings. The stubborn old Demon King faction was driven to the edge of the underworld. As a member of the old Demon King's faction, Gulifia fell in love with Syzax on the battlefield. In the end, she wasn't banished to the edge of the underworld, but instead became Syzax's consort and the new Demon King's wife. As for Gulifia's younger brother, Euclid, no one knew whether he was dead or alive after the war, and his whereabouts were unknown. As time passed, even Gulifia believed that her little brother was dead. However, if a third party were to look at them now, they would notice that Gulifia and Euclid did indeed look alike. Whether it was that head of silver hair or that face, it was very similar. There was no doubt that these two were brother and sister. It was because of this that Noah felt that he had seen Euclid somewhere before. It was only when he saw Gulifia again that Noah confirmed this. In addition, when they first met, Euclid had also introduced himself in the same way. I am Euclid Lucifergus. Lucifergus. The demon clan that once supported the old demon king Lucifergus was also Gulifia's family. Euclid and Gulifia shared the same surname and looked very similar. How could this not arouse Noah's suspicion? Later on, Noah also mentioned Euclid's existence in front of Syzax and Gulifia, causing Syzax's expression to change. Gulifia, on the other hand, was at a loss for what to do. Thus, this meeting took place. Answer me, Euclid. Gulifia's expression became very tense. Why did you join the group of disasters? Why? Euclid's expression returned to normal, and he laughed mockingly. Sister, do you really not know why I joined the group of disasters? Because of Lucifergus. Gulifia stared at Euclid. Because you are a descendant of the family that must support the demon king Lucifergus. Perhaps that's part of the reason. Euclid smiled non-committally. But since you can abandon the name of Lucifergus and live your life, I have the right to live the life I want, right? Is that so? Gulifia closed her eyes. Becoming a terrorist and bringing disaster to the world. Is that the life you want? Euclid looked at Gulifia and said, the life I want is one that is compatible with the life of a demon. Lord Lesavim has everything about the demon that I seek. That's why I follow him. I understand. Gulifia opened her eyes, and fiery magic slowly rose from her body. Since that's the case, I will also treat you as a true sinner and take you down. You're still as strict as before. No matter what I do wrong, you won't show favoritism. But that's how you should be, sister. Euclid's eyes glowed with a heat that had never been there before, and his body surged with mana that did not lose out to Gulifia at all. However, if you want to teach me a lesson, it won't be as easy as before. Sister, I'm also a demon with the same blood as you. Since you can become a demon king, I can naturally do the same. Now, I won't lose to you. Gulifia didn't say anything else. She looked at Euclid without any emotion, only sternness. Since she found out that her brother was still alive, she couldn't let him walk down the wrong path. It was with this belief that Gulifia came here. I won't show mercy. At the same time, in another alternate dimension, the black-clothed Apahis was looking at the person standing in front of him, his face full of surprise. He couldn't help but be surprised. This was because the person standing in front of Apahis was no stranger to him. He was wearing the same black clothes as Apophis. He had the same human form as Apophis. He had the same evil aura as Apophis. Only his eyes, one gold and one black, were completely different from Apophis's eyes that seemed to have condensed all the darkness in them. It was Crown Kvok. Apophis was truly shocked to see this man who was also known as one of the strongest evil dragons, just like himself. "It's you." "It's me." Crown Kvok nodded, his gaze never leaving Apophis. "I lost to the Red Dragon Emperor, so I agreed to help him fight against you." "I see." Apophis understood almost immediately. "You sent us, who are the main forces, to different spaces, and used forces of equal strength to defeat us one by one, or at least delay us. The rest of the forces will be gathered together to deal with the evil dragon army. You'll also be able to separate Lesavim, who has the Holy Grail, from us and prevent us from reviving. Is this your plan?" "I don't know," Crown Kvok said straightforwardly. "I'm just following the Red Dragon Emperor's orders and waiting for my opponent here." "Oh." Apophis smiled. "So you're saying that you want to fight me?" "That's right." Crown Kvok smiled. "Are you afraid?" "Afraid?" Apophis smiled even more happily. "It would be great if evil dragons knew what fear is." The gazes of the two most powerful evil dragons met in midair, and intense sparks were ignited. In the next instant, a similarly dense pitch-black draconic force erupted from Apophis and Kvok's bodies. Roar, 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 roar. Two dragon roars rang out, and two giant dragons with the same black luster appeared in this space. The only difference was their appearance. Crown Kvok was a typical Western giant dragon. Apophis, on the other hand, was in the form of a dragon snake like an Eastern dragon. Roar, 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 roar. The two completely different evil dragons with the same powerful aura roared at the sky, and the sound waves shook the air. Then, the two sides suddenly moved and collided violently. Chapter 1953. While the battle was going on in the two different spaces, in another different space, a fierce battle was already in full swing. Buzz! In the humming sound of the atmosphere, a huge magic array unfolded in the sky and instantly expanded to a range of more than a dozen meters. In the huge magic array, bolts of lightning formed by magic power fell like raindrops, directly shrouding the ground. There, Lesavim's face was gloomy as he looked at the lightning bolts falling from the sky. He didn't even try to dodge or defend himself, he just raised his hand towards the sky. An inexplicable fluctuation reverberated from Lesavim's raised hand, like a protective shield, it protected Lesavim within. The numerous lightning bolts that descended from the sky came into contact with the ripple that could not be seen with the naked eye. Immediately, they slowly disappeared into the air, not leaving behind even the slightest trace. Lesavim's face didn't look any better after easily dissolving the surging magic power attack. He was still extremely gloomy. Lesavim raised his eyes and looked at the sky. He saw the figure almost immediately. The figure was wearing a pure white comet-like armor and had a pair of blue light wings on his back. He looked like a small white dragon. "Yo, little Wally." Lesavim's face was gloomy, but his tone was extremely nasty. "My grandson, we haven't seen each other for so long. Is this how you greet your grandpa?" Lesavim. Wally's tone was full of anger and indifference. "I finally got the chance to destroy you." "Destroy me?" Lesavim grinned, raised a finger, and shook it arrogantly and contemptuously. "No, Wally, you should know that, right? You can't defeat me with your words. Whether I can do it or not, it's not with words, but with actions," Wally said in an unprecedentedly cold tone. "Don't worry, I will kill you before the others defeat the evil dragon." Wally's words poked at Lesavim's sore spot. After being teleported to another dimension, Lesavim realized that he was in trouble. Using the power of the Holy Grail, Lezavim had indeed resurrected legendary evil dragons and even transformed them into mass-produced evil dragons, forming an army that could threaten all mythical forces. However, Lezavim knew that this threat was only on the surface. That was because, other than the legendary evil dragons, the mass-produced evil dragons were all irrational and only had crazy battle instincts. Under such circumstances, even if their strength was equal, one side was a resourceful army, and the other side was a group of dragons that were worse than beasts. It was obvious who would win and who would win. Although the legendary-level evil dragons weren't completely irrational, they were all idiots with inexplicable stubbornness. They wouldn't listen to orders at all, so it wasn't strange for them to be defeated at any time. But compared to the White Dragon Emperor, I'd rather fight with you. I've really hit the jackpot, ha 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 ha. While Dahaka was laughing, a figure slowly walked over. Looking at the laughing three-headed evil dragon, the figure of the ancient demon king who called himself the absolute evil gradually became clearer in his mind. Noah walked forward step by step as he watched the approaching three-headed evil dragon. A terrifying look flashed in his dark eyes. Let me see if you can be like the demon king I once saw, and show the courage to subdue the heavens and earth. Chapter 1954. In the chaotic space, the three heads of the three-headed evil dragon were all staring in the same direction. Their red jade-like eyes flickered with a scorching and joyful radiance, making it very clear what they were feeling. Dahaka, who was in a great mood, looked at Noah who was slowly walking over, and all three heads laughed. So my opponent is the Godslayer. That's great. But I didn't think that I would be able to draw it. Listening to Dahaka's three heads' playful words, Noah stopped and said faintly. After all, you are the only one who won't be trapped in this alternate space. With your magical attainments, it would only take an instant for you to come up with a spell to escape from this alternate space. For this reason, I naturally had to prepare a foolproof opponent to deal with you. With that, Noah changed the topic. However, even without this factor, I still want to deal with you alone. Oh. Dahaka grinned. You want to fight me too? I want to ask you a question. Noah looked at Dahaka and asked. Why are you evil? Everyone suddenly fell silent. Dahaka's mischievous smile froze for a moment before it returned to normal. All three heads spoke at the same time. And here I thought you were going to ask me a question. It's a little boring. Do you want me to answer you? Noah ignored Dahaka's playful laughter and cast his gaze directly on him. Under such circumstances, Dahaka's smile did not diminish, but his tone became indifferent. Then, Dahaka said this. If that's the case, then let me ask you. In your opinion, what exactly is evil? I don't know. Noah's answer was very straightforward. I have seen too many evil people, but their evil is different. Is there really an answer to this question? What? Don't you know it very well? Dahaka pursed his lips. But I want to tell you that in your opinion, what you have seen before is evil, but in the eyes of others, it might not be so. What? Noah was slightly taken aback. You see, doesn't everyone have their own standards of value? Dahaka spoke with assurance. Children think that people who steal their toys are evil. Adults think that people who steal their money are evil. Men think that women who are shrewish are evil. Women think that men who cheat are evil. The so-called evil is simply something that other people put on them. If you say it yourself, is there any meaning? If I tell you now that I'm actually a good person, you won't believe me, right? Dahaka snorted. Dahaka's SS, I am an evil person, but I don't care. I just want to fight with powerful people. If it can satisfy me, that is enough. Dahaka said this from the bottom of his heart. If this is the so-called evil, then I am evil. Azidahaka's other two heads also spoke. Anyway, this is an evil dragon. An evil dragon should be evil. Azidahaka's words caused Noah's gaze to change as he looked at the evil dragon, and he fell silent. Ever since he knew that Azidahaka had revived and become an enemy as a member of the disaster squad, Noah had been comparing him to absolute evil in the box. It couldn't be helped. In the box, the mystic dragon that transcended myths and became the final human trial had left a very deep impression in Noah's heart. Until now, Noah had encountered many opponents. Some of these opponents had been taught a lesson, some had been killed directly, some had been forgotten in the blink of an eye, and some had been left in his memory. It could be said that there were all kinds of opponents. Among these opponents, if there was one that Noah respected the most, it would undoubtedly be Azidahaka. Ever since the mystic dragon became the final human trial, he had been wreaking havoc in the box. Not only did he have a 3-digit level of strength, but he also had a simulated star atlas, another cosmology, that exceeded the box by more than 3 digits. He had killed more than 1 million gods, causing the box to fall into an abyss of suffering. Frankly speaking, the mystic dragon's actions could be said to be the type that Noah hated the most. He did not care about the target, the individual, or time and space. This evil god that originated from the sect of fire unleashed the same horror, despair, doomsday, and destruction on everything. He destroyed everything in sight, regardless of whether it was people, things, or objects. Who knew how many innocent lives he had killed? To Noah, who had always believed that the innocent should not be harmed, and who believed that life was precious, this was definitely an existence that could not be tolerated. Therefore, Noah did not hesitate to challenge him, and even more so, did not hesitate to kill him. Even though he was covered in wounds, he still pierced through his body and dug out his heart. When he did this, there was no mercy or sympathy to speak of. Even if Azidahaka was resurrected again, Noah would definitely kill him. However, Noah had a very deep respect for this absolutely intolerable existence. This was because Noah did not forget that Azidahaka had done evil in order to give humans a glimmer of hope. He had transcended the myth and become the final human trial. In the end, humans would definitely walk towards doomsday. This was a fact that could not be changed. There was nothing that could remain the same forever. Humans were not the masters of Earth from the beginning. Instead, they gradually prospered through the long history of evolution and became the overlords of the land. However, who could be sure that humans could continue to survive? No. No one could. Perhaps, one day, humans would walk towards extinction due to an unknown disaster and give up their position as the overlord of the land. Humans' final trial was born because of this. Chapter 1955. Amidst the faint air-piercing sound, a comet-like trail of light descended from the sky at a terrifying speed that was close to the speed of light, heading straight for Lezavim's direction. Even Lezavim could barely see a ray of light flashing through the air at such a speed that he couldn't see it clearly at all. Damn it! Is this the Tyrannosaurus Rex? Lezavim cursed, but he didn't dare to be careless at all. The 12 wings on his back flapped fiercely, and his figure retreated like a bullet, flying directly into the air. Trying to escape. Varley's figure stopped at Lezavim's original position, and he raised his head and looked in Lezavim's direction. I won't let you escape. After saying that, Varley spread out his hands, and a surge of mana surged from his body and gathered on his hands. After using the extreme Tyrannosaurus Rex, Varley's power had skyrocketed to an extremely shocking level, and it didn't take much time to gather enough magic power to split mountains and seas. Therefore, almost at the instant when Lezavim retreated, a burst of lightning magic power erupted and turned into an endless barrage that swept across the space and enveloped Lezavim's direction. The barrage of lightning could be described as dense and dense. At least, Lezivim's vision was completely filled by the lightning bolts, and there was no room for other scenes to interfere at all. Moreover, each of the lightning bolts was at least a Demon King level attack. If he was hit by thousands of Demon King level attacks, even a surpasser like Lezivim would be severely injured. What the hell? Lezivim was really scared. Although he had long heard about how terrifying the Tyrannosaurus Rex form of the two heavenly dragons was, it was one thing to hear about it, and another to actually face it. What's more, Wally's Tyrannosaurus Rex was obviously different from Tyrannosaurus Rex. It didn't have that crazy ominous curse, but the power it displayed was still ridiculously strong. Furthermore, Tyrannosaurus was a power that could cause people to lose their rationality, but Wally didn't have to worry about that at all. Even when facing Lezivim, a blood relative with whom he had a deep hatred, he was still extremely calm. This made Lezivim's sense of crisis almost explode. But Lezivim sneered. No matter how powerful it is, as long as it's the power of a divine artifact, it's useless against me. As soon as he finished speaking, Lezivim also stopped in his tracks. He raised both of his hands high and gathered a shocking amount of magic power in his hands. Although the mana wasn't as powerful as Wally's with the Tyrannosaurus Rex, it still stirred up the atmosphere and gradually gathered into a mana bullet with a diameter of 2 meters. Then, Lezivim didn't fire the magic bullet in his hand, but instead allowed the storm of lightning magic to fall on his body. Whing! Accompanied by a trembling sound, the rain-like bolts of lightning that fell on Lezivim didn't cause any aftershocks, nor did they cause any damage. Like phantoms, they disappeared without a trace the moment they touched Lezivim. Thousands of Demon King-level attacks all disappeared just like that. Come on! Wally-chan! Lezivim shouted. Let Grandpa reward you with a big one. Lezivim's whole body fluctuated with dense mana as he shouted. A huge mana bullet with a diameter of more than 10 meters had already gathered in his hands that were raised high. Just the shining light on it caused ripples of power to appear in the surroundings. In the next second, the huge mana bullet fell from the sky and violently shot down like a falling meteorite. It rubbed against the air and set off waves of violent wind. In the sharp sound of the explosion, it directly fell in Wally's direction. That momentum, even if a Demon King saw it, he would be scared to the point of breaking out in cold sweat. Although it's decaying, at least this power is real. Wally looked at the huge mana bullet indifferently, but he didn't dodge. He directly raised his fist, gathered mana on it, and threw a lightning-fast punch at the falling mana bullet. Bang! The fist carrying terrifying power blasted the huge mana bullet that was more than 10 meters in diameter and several times larger than Wally's body without any suspense. However, Wally's expression suddenly froze. Because the mana bullet that was blasted apart didn't dissipate. Instead, it seemed to have disintegrated into countless mana bullets the size of a human head and surrounded Wally. You've been tricked. Lezivim laughed and suddenly clenched his hand that was facing Wally. All of a sudden, the countless head-sized magic power bullets turned into cannonballs, and without any warning, they shot towards Wally from all directions. Even if he used Tyrannosaurus, under such a comprehensive attack, Wally still couldn't escape. Therefore, the corners of Lezivim's mouth slowly curled up. He opened his eyes wide and was ready to enjoy the beautiful scene of his grandson's armor shattering, skin breaking, and blood dripping on the ground under the surging barrage of attacks. Unfortunately, Lezivim was destined to see that scene. Reflect. Such a voice suddenly sounded from the pieces of blue jade on Wally's silver armor. Immediately after, Wally's armor became crystal clear as if it had turned into glass. Under such circumstances, the mana bullets that landed on Wally's body were all reflected back as if they were all bounced off. They pierced through the air at a faster speed than before and violently shot toward Lezivim. What? Lezivim was taken aback. However, at this moment, the overwhelming mana bullets had already arrived in front of Lezivim. Lesavim didn't have time to react at all. Fortunately, Lesavim's artifact nullification ability was constantly in effect. Even if Lesavim himself didn't react, it would still take effect. Therefore, the moment the mana bullets violently shot over like cannonballs touched Lesavim, they were like stones thrown into the sea, creating ripples and disappearing into the air. Seeing this scene, Wally said bitterly, "Sure enough, even if the attack itself isn't my power, as long as it's reflected by the artifact's ability, it still won't work." Wally's voice finally woke Lesavim up. "What did you just do?" Lesavim looked at Wally with an ugly expression. "Isn't the White Dragon Emperor's ability halved and absorbed? What happened just now?" Hearing this, Wally was silent for a moment, then said faintly, "That's reflect." "Reflect?" Lesavim was stunned. Reflect. Without a doubt, that was the ability of the White Dragon Emperor, Arubian. It was different from halved and absorbed. After being sealed in the artifact, it completely disappeared and was never used again. After a conversation with Noah in the Kaipesh royal city, Wally began to immerse himself in unearthing the artifact's ability. He tried to unearth the third ability of Arubian like Noah. The result was gratifying. It didn't take long for Wally to succeed. Such a smooth success even made Wally a little uncomfortable. Regarding this matter, Asashel gave an explanation. Perhaps, the God of the Bible used the almost impossible condition of reconciliation between the two heavenly dragons as a shackle to seal the third ability of the two heavenly dragons when they were alive. If that was the case, then it could explain why Wally found the third ability so easily. Because, in the Kaipesh royal city, Drake and Arubian already showed signs of reconciliation. Therefore, Wally successfully unlocked the seal of the third ability and obtained the ability called Reflect. As the name implied, it was the ability to reflect the opponent's attack. Although it could only reflect energy attacks, it was still quite powerful. Unfortunately, the energy attack reflected by the artifact's ability is also counted as the power of the artifact. It can't be effective against the guy who has the artifact's ability to nullify it. Wally was a little unwilling and said in a low voice, "I'm sorry, Arubian. I have to use that ability." Then, another idea grew in Arubian's heart. "I want to be as strong as him." It was from then on that Arubian sealed his own poison and pursued powers other than poison. As a result, his ability to absorb and reflect was halved. Arubian had successfully developed these brand new abilities during his years of battle with Drager. Gradually, he gained the title of being the nemesis of strength. Together with Drager, he was promoted to the level of a sky dragon and was known as the Two Sky Dragons. If it hadn't met Drake, Arubian would have definitely used the ability of poison and become a poisonous dragon that relied on this ability instead of strengthening itself like it was now. It was precisely because it met Drake that Arubian improved itself and evolved into a brand new domain. Drake was the same, right? It was precisely because they were good opponents that the two dragons became the only two sky dragons. No matter what, they were pursuing to become stronger. The only people who knew about this matter were those who had lived in the same era as the two sky dragons since ancient times. Varley only learned about this matter later. Varley agreed with this point of view. If he were Arubian, he would definitely abandon the power of poison. Even if there was no poison, it didn't matter. That was what Varley had always thought. After all, the power of the White Dragon Emperor was strong enough, wasn't it? However, after reconciling with Drake in the capital of Sepesh, Varley also felt it. After witnessing the current Red Dragon Emperor, who was constantly pursuing himself and would never deny himself, Arubian's thoughts changed once again. "Do you want to use my poison?" Varley. Arubian's somewhat complicated and somewhat relieved voice came into Varley's heart. "Well, since the God Slayer and Drake are moving forward, if I still stay in the pain of the past, then I can't go any further. Varley, let us pick up the glory and ugliness of the past and move forward together. At this moment, the jade on Varley's body bloomed with unprecedented gentleness and dazzling light. Bathed in that light, Varley closed his eyes and experienced Arubian's hatred, disgust, and denial of his past self. He whispered in a low voice. I will bear all of your losses, Arubian. I swear to you that I will never become a poisonous dragon. That's right. Arubian's voice was so loud that it resounded throughout the entire space. We are not the poison dragon that pursues poison, we are the powerful sky dragon from the beginning to the end. An unprecedented dazzling light bloomed all over Varley's body. What's wrong? Lezivim shouted out in confusion. What's going on? Ignoring Lezivim's shouting, Varley raised his head and looked at Lezivim. Venom. It was a low and high-pitched voice. When such a voice sounded from the jade on Varley's body, an invisible force swayed through the space like a hazy fog, shrouding in the direction of Lezivim. Although I don't know what the hell you are doing. Lezivim showed an ugly smug smile. But didn't I say it? The power of the artifact to me. Before Lezivim could finish his sentence, he felt a sharp pain in his body. Poochie. Lezivim only felt a sweetness in his throat, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body fell from the air and heavily hit the ground. But it wasn't over yet. In the next moment, unimaginable pain burst out from the depths of Lezivim's soul and attacked Lezivim's whole body. Ah! Lezivim let out a painful scream and kept rolling on the ground. Blood flowed out of Lezivim's mouth, nostrils, ears, and eyes, dyeing his face red. The so-called bleeding from the 7 orifices referred to this situation. No, impossible. Lezivim screamed and roared. Why wasn't it nullified? What kind of ability is this? It wasn't Varley who answered Lezivim, but Arubian. That's an ability that I once abandoned, Arubian said in a calm tone. The main body is a type of poison, and its target is all existences other than inorganic matter. As long as it is a living thing that is poisoned by my poison, then whether it is blood, bones, organs, or even soul, everything that forms life will be reduced. Therefore, it is called reduction. What the hell is this? Lezivim roared in pain. I'm the son of the Demon King. I'm a surpasser who inherited Lucifer's blood. How can I be poisoned? Even gods can't avoid my poison, let alone a cowardly son of the Demon King like you. Arubian said coldly. Only the Red Dragon Emperor Drag is immune to my poison. It's probably ineffective against the Red Dragon Emperor and the Infinite Dragon God. But other beings will die under my diminished poison. Are you kidding me? Lezivim glared at Varley with blood-stained eyes. So what if you're powerful? Undoubtedly, as long as it's the power of a divine artifact, I can nullify it. You still don't understand. Wally looked at Lezivim with pity. Diminish not only targets you, but also your soul and life. Lezivim was stunned. Chapter 1957. Lezivim had used the Holy Grail to heal his injuries back in the Sipis kingdom. Originally, with the ability to nullify artifacts, the power of the Holy Grail should not work on Lezivim's body. But the power of the Holy Grail was targeted at life, so it could completely bypass Lezivim's artifact nullification and work on him. Just like Noah's penetration could bypass the layer of defense called artifact nullification and work directly on Lezivim, as long as it was not targeted at Lezivim, it would work. And Varley's diminish not only targeted Lezivim, but also his soul and everything that made up his life. Therefore, the diminishing poison could completely bypass the artifact nullification defense and work on Lezivim's life and soul, gradually weakening his life and soul and making him suffer so much that he would rather die. How could this be? Lezivim muttered sluggishly as he endured the pain from his life and soul. How could this be? Varley's eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Lezovim's sluggish appearance. The killing intent that was enough to prick one's skin made Lezovim shudder violently as he finally realized what was going on. He might not be able to keep his life. What? What are you trying to do? Lezovim asked with a trembling voice. I'm your grandfather, Varley. Are you trying to attack your grandfather? It would have been fine if Lezovim did not say anything, but once he did, the anger in Varley's heart rose along with his killing intent. Grandfather. Have you done what a grandfather should do? Instigating his son to abuse his grandson for enjoyment, and after his grandson escaped, he killed his son out of boredom. Is this what a grandfather or even a father should do? Lezovim, you don't deserve to be called Lucifer. You don't even deserve to be called a human. Even a demon will be tainted by an existence like you. Varley said in a low voice as he lifted his feet and walked towards Lezovim step by step. There is no place for you in this world. You can just die here. After saying that, Wally removed the armor on his arm, exposing his hand to the air. A surge of mana rose from Wally's hand and gradually materialized into a sword. It was a sword materialized from pure magic. Without the enhancement of a divine artifact, it was forged with the infusion of the demon's magic power. Even Lezovim's divine artifact nullification could not affect it. In addition, Wally was in the form of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Even if he couldn't deal damage to Lezovim with abilities other than damage reduction, the powerful physical strength of the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the mana sword in his hand were enough to kill Lezovim. Wally knew this, and so did Lezovim. Don't come here. Don't come here. Lezovim could only wriggle his body and retreat. His blood-stained face was filled with fear. Don't come any closer. Looking at Lezovim's ugly appearance, the anger in Varley's heart subsided, leaving only killing intent. That murderous aura directly ignited the fear in Lezovim's heart. Didn't I tell you not to come over? In fear, Lezovim roared, propped up his body, raised his hand, and released a large number of magic power bombs. Countless mana bullets turned into a rain of bullets, and like a storm, they violently shot in Wally's direction. But perhaps because of fear, perhaps because of panic, or perhaps because of the influence of the reducing poison, the magic power bombs released by Lezovim were several times smaller than before. They were only the size of a fist, and their power was not even comparable to that of a superior demon. Wally didn't even bother to defend. He just let a layer of crystal wall flash across his armor. Reflect. Under the low voice, the magic power bombs were all bounced away. They bounced in all directions at a faster speed than when they came, blasting the surrounding ground one by one and becoming riddled with holes. Go away. Go away. Lezovim looked at Wally, who was getting closer and closer, and the fear in his heart rose to the extreme. Ignoring the sharp pain that burst out from the depths of his soul and the blood that began to seep out from under his skin, he desperately squeezed the remaining magic power in his body and shot magic power bombs at Wally. However, the moment the storm-like attacks came into contact with Wally, they were immediately bounced away by the reflecting ability, causing no damage at all. In terms of strength alone, Wally, who used the Tyrannosaurus Rex, was already much stronger than Lezovim. If it weren't for the fact that Lezovim had the ability to nullify the artifact and restrained Wally to a large extent, there was no need to use the reducing poison at all. Wally could easily deal with Lezovim. Now, the poison that even gods couldn't avoid was wreaking havoc in Lezovim's body, destroying everything that made up Lezovim's life bit by bit. As long as the reducing poison was not removed, Lezovim's death was only a matter of time. Even if he didn't add the final blow, Lezovim would die under the effect of the reducing poison. However, Wally didn't want to end things like this. It wasn't that Wally couldn't bear to see Lezovim die under the torture of the reducing poison, but Wally had to kill him personally to settle the grudges of the past. I've said it before, you don't even have the qualifications to be my opponent. For me, you're just a person that must be killed, not an opponent that I can enjoy the pleasure of fighting. Wally said in a deep voice. You should regret it. You should regret torturing me for fun and giving me a chance to escape. You shouldn't have killed me before I grew up. No. No. Lezoim cried bitterly. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. It's my fault. It's all my fault. I beg you, don't kill me. Noah was right, Lezoim was just a nobody. Chapter 1958. Roar, 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 roar. Terrifying roars reverberated in the space, turning into sound waves that resounded throughout the world. Along with the frightening roar, one magic array after another flashed. The magic arrays were not large, only about 1 meter in diameter. However, looking at the magic arrays that flashed one by one, Noah felt his scalp go numb. There was no other reason for this. It was simply because the number of magic arrays was so numerous that it was shocking. The sky was filled with magic arrays. The ground was filled with magic arrays. The space was filled with magic arrays. Even the surrounding flowers, grass, trees, and wood were filled with magic arrays. The countless magic arrays that filled the entire world were imprinted in Noah's eyes. How could Noah's scalp not go numb? However, the initiator of this did not seem to be panting at all. He floated in the air, looked at Noah opposite him, and laughed. This is a treatment that only you can enjoy. Magic is being given away. It's being given away. Amidst the laughter of Aziz Dahaka's 3 heads, vigorous magic power began to surge in the magic arrays that covered the entire world. Noah's sharp senses allowed him to notice this. Almost without thinking, his figure trembled, and he dashed away like lightning. Almost in the blink of an eye, the magic arrays lit up one after another. Immediately, flashes of light burst out from the magic arrays, turning into rays of light. Like intertwined lasers, they enveloped Noah from all directions. At this moment, the world was filled with rays of light, and there was no way to escape. Even though Noah immediately retreated, the magic arrays from the top, bottom, left, and right still shot out beams of light that covered the sky and the earth, surrounding him like a huge net. Under such a terrifying barrage, Noah could not escape at all. Without any suspense, he was engulfed by the rays of light. Boom, 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 boom. A series of shocking explosions rang out in the air. Beams of laser light landed on Noah's body, exploding his skin and tearing apart his flesh. He was bombarded until there was not a single piece of skin left unscathed, and his body was smashed into pieces. Seeing this, Aziz Dahaka was stunned at first, but then he saw it. The guy who was blasted into pieces by the magic arrays was not Noah at all, but a light shadow. Light? Aziz Dahaka's 3 pairs of red jade-like eyes flashed, and then he unhesitatingly deployed a shield-like defensive magic array around him. At the same time, a figure dashed out from behind the 3-headed evil dragon, raised his fist, and threw a punch that could split mountains and rocks. Clang! With a bell-like sound, the defensive magic array behind Aziz Dahaka blocked the punch that carried a terrifying force, causing a shockwave of wind to spread out from the point of the punch. Hum! In the next instant, the defensive magic arrays suddenly rotated, and the mysterious characters and intricate diagrams within them suddenly changed and formed a brand new magic array. Aziz Dahaka actually modified the magic arrays that had already been formed in a split second, and turned the defensive magic arrays into offensive magic arrays. Noah could not help but be surprised by his attainment in magic. However, Noah's surprise didn't last long. Threads that looked like blood suddenly flashed out from the offensive magic arrays, and like maggots in tarsal bones, they spread up Noah's arm that was on the magic arrays. Noah immediately felt it. The threads that were like blood were sucking the blood from his body. In just an instant, Noah felt blood flowing out of his body, and he could not help but be shocked, and he shook his arm. Boom! The threads that were spreading on Noah's arm were immediately shaken off. At the same time, Noah took a step back, and his figure quickly retreated. Not bad. Aziz Dahaka laughed out loud. This is the first time I've seen someone who can easily disperse my magic with brute force. I thought you would use that, another cosmology, to offset it. Aziz Dahaka did not know that even if he did not use another cosmology to offset it, Noah could still be immune to magic below the level of God by relying on the curse resistance unique to the God Slayer. But even so, Aziz Dahaka's magic still had an effect on Noah, which proved that Aziz Dahaka's magic had already reached the level of God. Moreover, even if he used another cosmology, it would most likely not be able to offset Aziz Dahaka's magic, right? Since you know the existence of another cosmology, you're probably on guard against it, right? Noah looked straight at Aziz Dahaka. The magic you're using now is all magic developed by humans, right? Magic developed by humans naturally had a human view of the universe. For such magic, Avesta would not be able to cancel it out. For the forbidden dragon, who was known as the master of thousands of magic and was known as the source of magic, it was impossible for the evil dragon not to have mastered human magic. Perhaps the magic that Aziz Dahaka used from beginning to end was all magic developed by humans. Correct. Aziz Dahaka grinned. As a reward, I'll use a forbidden spell in my magic attack this time. As soon as he finished speaking, the magic circles that covered the entire world began to light up one by one. However, this time, what appeared from the magic circle was not a direct attack of light, nor were there threads that could absorb blood. So, what was it that came out of the magic array this time? Purple flames in the shape of skulls. Hurricanes and lightning mixed with curses. Fog of death upon contact. Dark ripples that corroded one's soul. In fact, even elemental hounds with life, corrosive fangs, and many spells with unknown effects surged out of the magic arrays one after another. Immediately, thousands of magic spells once again surged out from all directions, covering the sky and covering the earth as they enveloped Noah, not leaving a single gap for him to dodge. If he was hit directly by those magic spells with various effects, even if Noah could rely on his vitality to weaken or eliminate some of them, the remaining magic spells would be enough to blast Noah to the point where not even his bones would be left. This evil dragon's magic attainment is much higher than I imagined. Noah stared at the terrifying magic spells that surged out from all directions and took a deep breath. The divine power in his body was completely converted into magic power. Clang! A burst of dazzling white light suddenly bloomed from Noah's body. It surged out like a tide and covered the space dozens of meters around Noah. The moment the magic spells that surged out from all directions came into contact with the dazzling white light, they were neatly cut apart. White lines spread out from the light and disintegrated along the white lines. Bang, 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 bang. Amidst the sounds of explosions, the magic spells exploded one after another and completely disappeared into the air. What? Aziz Dahaka exclaimed in shock. So many forbidden magic spells were blocked so easily. In fact, others should be the ones who were truly shocked. Aziz Dahaka was actually able to use forbidden spells in such a simple manner. Furthermore, the number of forbidden spells he cast was so overwhelming that it was impossible to count them all. Furthermore, each forbidden spell was completely different. It was truly shocking. The strength of this evil dragon was just as Sazax had described. Among the evil dragons, cloned Koak isn't the only one who has reached the heavenly dragon level. Noah looked at the three evil dragons. Aziz Dahaka has also reached the heavenly dragon level. If that was the case, perhaps Apophis, who was also the strongest evil dragon, had also broken through to the heavenly dragon level. Whether or not Clon Kovac could defeat Apophis was still an unknown. Chapter 1959. In the era when all the evil dragons were destroyed, only the clone Kovac survived. He continued to train himself and finally reached the heavenly dragon level. Although Az-Dahaka and Apophis were the strongest evil dragons on par with the clone Kovac, they had been destroyed a long time ago and were only recently revived by the Holy Grail. They should not have had so much time to train themselves to reach the heavenly dragon level like the clone Kovac. However, Noah was certain. Putting Apophis aside, Az-Dahaka must have reached the level of a heavenly dragon. At the very least, Noah felt that Az-Dahaka's strength was definitely on the same level as the clone Kovac. Since the clone Kovac was a heavenly dragon, Az-Dahaka, who was on the same level as him, would naturally be a heavenly dragon as well. As for how Az-Dahaka reached the heavenly dragon level, Noah could more or less guess. The Holy Grail. The divine destruction tool that could overturn the principles of life had transformed Az-Dahaka. The proof was that Noah could feel that the dragon kill ability did not seem to work on this evil dragon. The dragon kill was an ability that could cause great damage to dragon-type creatures. The ultimate dragon kill ability like Samuel's could even absorb the power of Orpheus and had an effect on the infinite dragon god. Therefore, the dragon kill was almost an inherent weakness of the dragons. However, Az-Dahaka did not have this weakness. This proved that the Holy Grail had transformed this evil dragon and removed the weakness of the dragon kill. Using the Holy Grail's ability, Az-Dahaka had become a flawless creature. This was something that the vampires who had once wallowed in the mire with the Disaster Syndicate had been pursuing. After becoming a flawless creature, their strength would naturally increase. Az-Dahaka had used this method to surpass the limit and become a heavenly dragon. After all, he was originally the strongest evil dragon after the heavenly dragon level. If he went one step further, he would naturally become a heavenly dragon. Drake's voice sounded in Noah's mind. Based on this, Apophis, who was also revived by the Holy Grail, should have also reached the heavenly dragon level. It would be difficult for the clone Kovac to defeat him. The three strongest evil dragons, second only to the Sky Dragon, had all reached the Sky Dragon level. Since when was it so easy to reach the heavenly dragon level? Forget about the clone Kovac, but Az-Dahaka and Apophis had only recently been resurrected. Although they had relied on the Holy Grail's modification to cross that line, the heavenly dragon level was at the level of the top 10 in the world. For three of such existences to appear at the same time was truly terrifying. However, there are more than 10 people in the world's top 10. There are still some people like Sazax, Achuka, and Typhon who can be ranked in the top 10. Didn't Tianlong not enter the rankings when he was alive? Drake said. Therefore, don't think that just because you're ranked, you'll definitely be able to beat the rest of the unranked fellows. Until now, the only one who can guarantee that he's absolutely above the rest of the existences is the infinite dragon god, who's ranked first. This was also a fact. Moreover, Clone Kovac, Az-Dahaka, and Apophis were the strongest evil dragons that were only one step away from the heavenly dragon level. It wouldn't be strange for them to cross that line and reach the heavenly dragon level at any time. With that thought in mind, the corners of Noah's mouth curved upwards without leaving a trace. Although Az-Dahaka was Az-Dahaka, and Az-Dahaka was Az-Dahaka, and both of them were of the same origin, they were not the same person. However, the three-headed demonic dragon of the sect of fire was not to be underestimated no matter which world it was in. It was time for the probing to end here. Drake. Let's go. All right. A crimson gauntlet flashed on one of Noah's arms. Balance breaker. As Noah growled, crimson waves of air suddenly surged from Noah's body. It was as if they could topple mountains and overturn seas, setting off gusts of strong wind that constantly shook the surroundings. Sensing the sudden surge of terrifying aura from Noah's body, Dahaka's expression turned solemn. At the same time, unprecedented joy and passion surged in his eyes. "You're finally willing to use a divine weapon, and you're using a balance breaker right from the start. This dragon wave is so strong that it makes me happy." Just as Dahaka's words fell, the figure opposite him, whose entire body was surging with scarlet-red waves of air, suddenly moved. Like an arrow leaving a bow, it shot out explosively. Amidst the faint sound of the air being torn apart, Noah turned into a crimson meteor and shot straight in Dahaka's direction. "Come on." Dahaka felt his blood boiling, and his entire body surged with shocking energy waves. Immediately afterward, Dahaka roared, and a crystal-clear defensive magic array spun out, like a barrier, protecting him inside. However, at the same time, a cacophony of voices rang out. Boost, 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 boost. The ability to multiply was constantly activated, causing Noah's power to soar to a terrifying level. Under such circumstances, Noah's speed suddenly increased, and he rushed to Dahaka's front in an instant. With a deep sonic boom, his fist suddenly punched out and smashed fiercely on the defensive magical formation in front of Dahaka. Boom! A muffled explosion reverberated in the air. On the crystal-clear defensive magical formation, a series of ripples vibrated rapidly. Penetrate. As soon as Shurfong finished speaking, a frightening force suddenly pierced through the defensive magic array. Like an invisible shockwave, the force slammed into Dahaka. Boom! Dahaka only felt a sudden explosion in front of him, and then his entire body was blasted away. Like a cannonball, he crashed heavily on the ground, raising a thick cloud of dust. However, the thick cloud of dust was immediately blown away by an earth-shattering roar. Ha 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 ha! Blood flowed from the corners of Dahaka's three heads' mouths, but as if in ecstasy, they let out joyful laughter. Great! That's the way it should be. It's finally here. An intense battle. It's finally here. The battle I wanted. The three heads of the evil dragon roared in ecstasy, and the sound waves shook the entire world. Buzz, 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 buzz. At this moment, the magical formations all over the world suddenly changed. Once again, Dahaka used his astonishing magic attainments to modify the spells that had taken shape. Immediately after, forbidden spells burst out from the magical formations all over the sky, the earth, and even the space like a storm. They tore through the air, and with the sound of the atmosphere trembling, they enveloped Noah from all directions. However, this time, Noah did not make any defensive moves. As if he could not see the forbidden spells that were surging towards him, Noah turned into a crimson stream of light and swept towards Dahaka without hesitation. In the next second, forbidden spells landed on Noah's body one after another. Boom, 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 boom. Accompanied by a series of explosions, the spells that were enough to flatten a piece of land exploded, causing bursts of fire and impact. In an instant, the entire sky seemed to have been ignited, and the flames set off by the intense explosion spread wildly, covering everything in an instant. In the flames, even the magical formations that Dahaka had cast were burned to pieces, and the magical formations all over the sky were destroyed. However, the destruction of the magical formations had no effect at all. If he wanted to, Dahaka could continue to cast magical formations all over the sky at any time until his mana was exhausted. Magic, to Dahaka, was just that kind of existence. However, it was also because of his profound magical attainments that Dahaka could clearly feel. His spells did not cause much damage to his opponent at all. In the next moment, a crimson stream of light burst out from the flames all over the sky. Chapter 1960. Accompanied by the clear sound of something breaking through the air, the flames that filled the entire sky were sliced into two by a crimson meteor. They were then shattered into sparks that scattered in all directions. Meanwhile, the crimson meteor dashed towards Aziz Dahaka, and with a shake of its arm, a beautiful and gentle white light began to gather. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a dazzling radiance that lit up the entire space. That scene was simply like a person holding a small sun. It made people feel sluggish. Noah raised his arm that was shining with a dazzling white light, clenched it into a fist, and punched Aziz Dahaka. At first glance, it looked as though a comet had pierced through the pitch-black three-headed evil dragon, and it was a dazzling sight. However, there was a fatal danger hidden in that dazzling sight. If Aziz Dahaka was hit by the fist that was condensed with the power of crushing, he would definitely be smashed into pieces even though he was a heavenly dragon. Aziz Dahaka knew this better than anyone else. So, how was Aziz Dahaka supposed to survive that terrible blow? Resist? That would be useless in the face of a power that could crush everything in the world. Defend? That would be courting death in front of Noah's penetrative power. So, dodge. That was undoubtedly the best choice. However, Aziz Dahaka had to admit that he was a standard type of mage. Even if he had physical abilities that were far superior to that of humans, he was much weaker compared to Noah. There was no way he could avoid it. However, being unable to use his physical ability to dodge did not mean that Aziz Dahaka did not have other ways to dodge. At least, Noah undoubtedly saw it clearly. Just as his full-powered attack was about to hit Aziz Dahaka, the three-headed evil dragon suddenly disappeared without any warning. Clang! In the next second, a dazzling comet landed on the ground, and a dazzling white light covered the entire ground like a violent wave. Boom! Without any suspense, the attack that gathered the shattering magic power easily caused the area covered by the white light to suddenly explode, turning into pieces of equal size. Like pieces of rubble, they blasted in all directions amidst the shock waves. By the time the light dimmed, a crater with a diameter of several kilometers had appeared on the ground. However, this hole was in the shape of a very neat cube. It was rather strange. Hovering above the crater, Noah furrowed his brows and raised his head to look up. Over there, Aziz Dahaka had appeared out of nowhere and was floating in the air. His three heads were speaking in joyful voices. What a terrifying strike! It's more powerful than any forbidden technique. I almost died. That sarcastic voice made Noah frown. I see. Noah murmured. Teleportation magic. Apart from this reason, there was no other reason to explain how Aziz Dahaka suddenly disappeared and dodged that blow. However, if he thought about it carefully, that didn't seem to be a strange thing. Since he could use all kinds of forbidden spells, it was normal for Aziz Dahaka to be able to use spatial transference magic. Perhaps it wasn't just space-related magic, but also time-related magic. Aziz Dahaka might be able to easily use it. This is troublesome. Thinking back, Maxwell could rely on his teleportation ability to deal with Noah in his heyday, let alone Aziz Dahaka. In terms of strength, Aziz Dahaka was definitely above Maxwell. Compared to that time, Noah had lost his authority, sovereignty, and ability value. It was easy to imagine how troublesome it would be to deal with Aziz Dahaka in such a way. Perhaps Aziz Dahaka saw Noah's frown, but he laughed out loud. What's wrong? Did you admit defeat? I don't think so. You're a god slayer. Let's fight again. Make me even more excited. Provocative words sounded one after another from Aziz Dahaka's three heads, making Noah's frown deeper and deeper. At this moment, a voice appeared in Noah's mind. Oh. Draeger seemed to feel something at first and was surprised for a moment, then suddenly laughed out loud. Has that guy Arubian finally walked out of his long period of confusion? Noah was stunned. Arubian. What happened to Arubian? As if he didn't notice Noah's shock, Draeger continued to laugh. Well, since you've solved your poison, then I'll solve my flame too. As soon as the voice fell, a surge of thoughts rushed into Noah's mind, making Noah's spirit suddenly soar, and the magic power in his body began to boil violently. Boom! Suddenly, a burst of surging flames began to burn around Noah. Like an explosion, they began to vibrate and spread out. That flame looked like an ordinary flame. It was slowly burning and emitting heat that was not very hot. In fact, it could even be said to be slightly warm. However, the laughing Az Dahaka's face suddenly changed, and his expression slowly became dignified. This was because an unimaginable sense of danger rose in Az Dahaka's heart. What kind of flames is that? Az Dahaka stared at the flames on Noah's body, and as if he thought of something, he muttered to himself. The flames of the Red Dragon Emperor. It can't be that, right? While Az Dahaka was surprised, Noah was also shocked. Looking at the blazing flames around him, Noah cried out in astonishment. What's going on? While Noah was shocked, Drake's voice also sounded. This is an ability that I sealed. An ability that you sealed. Noah was stunned at first, then immediately remembered. When he was in the Seep's kingdom, Drake did mention this matter. In addition to multiplication, transfer, and penetration, there was an ability that was more dangerous than Forbidden Hand and Tyrannical Dragon. So, this is flame ? That's right. This is the blazing flame that I, the Crimson Dragon Emperor, am so proud of. It's the killing move that even the gods and demon kings fear. However, after encountering Arubian, I sealed it away. Now, with the appearance of an artificial artifact, I have unsealed it once again, said Drake. Try my flames, partner, I believe it won't let you down. Hearing this, Noah took a deep breath and nodded. Boom! Another sound like an explosion. The surging flames on Noah's body soared, turned into raging flames, and spread in all directions. Such a scale finally caused the temperature between heaven and earth to soar. Noah, on the other hand, seemed to have transformed into an erupting volcano, constantly releasing scorching flames from his body. Aziz Dahaka's heart tightened at the sight of the flames that were sweeping towards him like a monstrous wave. Without any hesitation, he once again activated the spatial teleportation spell, and disappeared on the spot. The scorching flames engulfed Az Dahaka's location, but there was no sign of it stopping. Instead, it spread to the entire world at an extremely alarming speed. Not long after, the entire alternate space was enveloped in a sea of fire and began to burn. The air was burning. The earth was burning. The sky was burning. The space was burning. This world had completely turned into a world of flames, like the inside of a volcano, turning into a terrifying red lotus hell. In the face of the flames, the ground quickly turned into scorched earth. The flowers, plants, and trees were also burned to ashes. Even the magic arrays that Aziz Dahaka had set up were burned to nothingness, leaving behind a world of pure flames that was engulfed by a sea of fire. At a certain moment, in a certain space, Az Dahaka, who was shrouded in flames, suddenly appeared. Roar, roar, roar. A terrifying roar rang out from all three of Az Dahaka's heads. But the roar was neither terrifying nor frightening. The reason for that was because that roar actually contained unprecedented pain. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.